Tree Business, helping tree services succeed.
All right, welcome back. I'm here with Jeff McManus, and Jeff is the author of the book, Growing Weeders into Leaders. So we can put a link to that, but great book. It's an easy read. And, I've already mentioned I do a lot of books on tape. This one I actually read. It was a physical book, and for me, most everything is audio book. But that one was a good book, and it was one that I really didn't want to put down. And so, for me, reading's kind of hard.
Yeah.
So, that one was one that I was like, man, I want to see how this ends. I want to keep going and keep reading it. So I thought it was a really good book. So glad that you're here with me, and love to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed writing the book because it tells a little of our story at Ole Miss and how we changed the culture there from a very negative culture. I've been now with you for all day today. We work together.
Yeah.
And so your culture is very good. You have a very strong, positive culture in the workplace. How important is culture? You read my book as far as culture was negative. We had to change that culture. How important is that to you, and how do you do it?
Yeah, it's everything. And culture, if you don't set it, then it's going to set itself. And that can be good, but generally it's not. That you wind up with this really bad culture, and then everybody is kind of falling in line with that. And that's not really what we want. So,
what I saw today, though, was very intentional culture.
It is.
So tell us a little bit about that. What is it that you intentionally do?
That's a good question. So we want to take our core values, and we want to make sure in hiring that we're hiring people that line up with our core values. And to put it in a nutshell, people that are like the people that we have. And if we get somebody that's outside of that, and I'm not talking about necessarily what they look like or if they're male or female or whatever, I'm talking about like how they are as a person. But if they are well outside of that, it's not going to be a good fit. They're going to feel like they're not really part of it. And our people are going to feel like, hey, we don't really want to be around that person. And, if you look at our core values, they're pretty simple. But, if somebody is dishonest, like, we don't want to be around that person. We don't want to be around somebody that we're worried about stealing from us. We don't want to worry about somebody that might lie to us, things like that. So, I think in hiring is first, and then we're using that as we go along to really set that culture and make sure that we're keeping, there's certain things in there.
So in the book, I share a story that my run-in or my mishap was Rick. Yeah. And Rick ends up quitting on me because of my perfectionism or my need to feel like I needed to contribute to the team. And I did that through correcting incorrectly. You shared some stories today with your culture and what you did. How does that relate to some of the things that you've gone through?
Oh, man, that puts me on the spot. So
you shared today how you had to go out and look at the crew and everything they did, and sometimes the plants that they would put in a different place.
Yeah, so I started out in landscaping and then transitioned into tree service, but yeah, I wanted things to be perfect, and I'm thinking of that story that I told you earlier, but I wanted things to be perfect. And I was always looking for things that were wrong, things that needed to be fixed. And so when I found them, I felt like I was doing my job of finding the things that weren't right and then explaining, hey, this needs to be fixed. And the last thing on my mind was, who am I offending? Whose feelings am I hurting? Am I giving praise to the people that just busted their butt all day long to do this? But what I was doing was going out and finding the things that they were doing wrong. And it's very easy to do that. It's hard to recognize the hard work that they put in and all the things that they did right. But one of the story that I told him earlier was, so I would go out and I would find something wrong with every job, and they would have to fix it. And so it didn't take very long before they started doing things wrong intentionally. They would put one plant out of place. And so when I'm looking down the line, I'm like, something's not right. And so I would say, hey, that plant is too far over. And they go, oh, yes, boss. Okay. All right. And they'd move it over. Well, I figured out, wait a minute, they're doing that on purpose. Like they're just trying to give me something to find, because if I didn't find that one plant that was way out of whack intentionally, then it was going to be something like moving, a brick sidewalk over half an inch, which is a gigantic pain in the butt. Or it was going to be moving a tree, which is a much bigger process, or something like that. So anyway, that was a kind of funny. It was funny when I realized what was going on. But what happened was I didn't realize what I was doing to my people. I was beating them down. And they were out there busting their butt. And I just flew in like a seagull, just crapped all over everything, and then left. And I didn't realize the negative effect that was having on my people. And so, it takes being intentional about it, but you have to be able to show them, to tell them, to give them a pat on the back, tell them the things that they're doing right.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. We talked about that some today. But if I go out to a job and things aren't done right, this guy's not wearing his safety glasses, the Cummins aren't in the right spot, sign's not out, job briefing's not signed, whatever. I'm looking at that and I'm going, hey, we got to fix this. It's really hard, mainly because my focus is gone. Like I go there with intention of telling everybody how great they're doing, and then I see all these things, and instantly my brain goes to somewhere else, and I had lost even thinking about giving compliments and praise.
Yeah.
And so it's much easier said than done, but it's really important, and I've got to figure out how I can make sure, and you got to be intentional. So I've got to figure out how I can just make sure that I'm intentional about giving that praise, and it's got to be honest too, because if I just go out and say, hey, great job guys, everything looks good, like that, they don't believe it. That's not genuine. And so it has to be things that they're doing really good. Hey, I like the way that y'all set up this traffic control. I like the way that y'all thought to put this here instead of over there. And people hear that. It also makes it a lot easier to give that criticism, that we can view it as negative or constructive criticism or whatever. But when you hear that, it's a lot easier to take after you've heard a whole bunch of good stuff. And then there's some constructive criticism versus all the time nag. We don't want to just nag. And I've done.
Well, the big thing though, Chris, is that you recognize that you have an awareness of that. So that's part of it. And all of us as leaders fall into that because we're driven. We're driven for perfection, excellence, greatness. And you get that by making sure the quality's there, that we're getting great results for our customers. So hats off to you. So you read the book a while back. You mentioned that you like to do a lot of audio books. What made you go to the paperback of this, and what were one of the two takeaways you had?
So at the time I wasn't doing audio books. I was doing physical books, and physical books were kind of tough because they just didn't interest me a lot. They would kind of put me to sleep. It's hard to find the time to read. You can't read while you're driving down the road. Hard to read in the morning because I'm kind of trying to hurry up and get out. In the afternoon, there's like only so much time, and then it's time for bed, and then I'm like going to sleep. So, but that one I did find time to read. And I don't remember if it was at night or on the weekend or whatever it was, but I remember when I started reading and I was like, this is really good. I gotta keep going through this. Some of the takeaways, one is that everybody thinks that you have to there's this magic like crop of people that you got to go find. And they're working for somebody else, and you got to like go steal them. All the good people are somewhere else, and you got to go steal them from somewhere and then get them to work for me. But you showed here, you were able to take a group of guys that were acting like knuckleheads and turn them into something else, the same people. Now, granted, I know some people wound up leaving and some people, came on, but largely a lot of that same group you were able to take and turn them into leaders, as the title implies. So that's really cool. And I think that too many times we get caught up thinking there's no good people, or I need to go, all the good people are working somewhere else. I got to go get them and pull them over here. But we got some really good people here. They just need some better leadership. They need some better direction. They need, somebody to help shake them into, what they, so that was a really good tip.
That's a good point, because a lot of times we talk about letting the weeds grow amongst our people, and we say we got a full of weeds.
Yeah.
But what I found out as a leader, I mean, that is true. Sometimes you've got to remove the weeds. I mean, there's just some people like that. But there's other times when we didn't recognize that that what we thought was a weed was really plantain. And plantain can be a weed, but it also can be a salad. And it can also go on ant bites. And so some of our employees, we learned that, if we give them the good leadership, we show them how to read, maybe we even expose them to some good leadership, they begin to evolve into that leader that we look for. Some of them today still work for me, are some of my best mentors. I would not have let them given you a tour 20 years ago. I would have been afraid. But today, I would let them go with you and give you a tour of the campus with no problems because I trust them that much.
Yes.
That's us.
And I'll point out, he was here with us all day on a Friday. His group was over there working, doing what they were supposed to, and probably never even bothered it.
I don't think they did.
Because the way that you set them up for success, and you're not the bottleneck, they don't need you in there for everything, and so that's really cool, and it speaks volumes for what you're doing over there. Just that they were able to handle things. Did they have problems today? Probably so. Well, is it probably the whole building that burned down, but if they did, they probably would have covered maybe.
Maybe I'll find out.
Yeah. So, but I think that's really cool though, is that, they already know they're going to have something happen in the middle of the day, or it's going to break, somebody's going to be out sick, whatever, and they already have a plan for it. They just keep going.
I value my time. You said that earlier today. That's one resource we cannot review is time. And so I want them to be empowered so they can make the decision. And you said this as well, and I agree. I don't want to be the bottleneck. I don't want to be the person that keeps things from happening. So I literally try to train myself out of a position, and so that my leaders are empowered. I noticed you're doing that as well. You're taking a big step in that direction as well. And this is your company. It's got your name on it. It's your brand. And that's a big step. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
It is, and it's a little bit scary, but I'm not just going to disappear. Like, I've set things up to where they can work without. And so that takes a lot of doing. That doesn't happen overnight. Not that I'm some amazing person, but I had, when I started this thing, it was all me, and then I was involved in every facet of it. And so to be able to pull myself out of that has taken a while, but certainly setting it up to where it can run without me being there, they don't have to call me for anything, then it's a really awesome place to be.
That's a big win. And
yeah. So I'm leaving in a week. And we'll know leaving for a month, and we'll see. And I think things are going to run well. I have a lot of faith in our people that they're going to continue to run things smoothly. And we already know they're going to encounter issues, and they're going to deal with it in the best manner possible. And feel good about it.
Anything you want to say as far as today, are us working together, or about the book? Anything you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to focus on the book, and if you could tell some stories from that, just to, anybody that's watching or listening, and something they may be interested in that would encourage somebody to want to pick the big book up and read it.
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the aspects that we talked about today was enlarging the way our people see our business, our operation. And my boss encouraged me to take my people out and show them we're going to college campus, show them another college campus.
Yeah.
He says, a lot of our folks have not traveled, have not gone out and seen the Disney worlds and other college campuses and things. And so that was an aha moment for me, is to load up the van, and I carried 5-6 of us to these properties and just started looking at it. And all of a sudden they had fresh eyes. They understood, because they had a critical eye, and they were viewing a property that wasn't theirs. And so they could be critical. They could see the little things. So we had one of our employees who I had always had troubles with. He's one of my leaders, that he did not blow the grass clippings off very well, especially at lunchtime. And he would go in for lunch, there'd be grass clippings all over the sidewalks. Well, we have new people coming on campus every hour of the day. I mean, we have a lot of new visitors that are coming to take tours, and the sidewalks were embarrassing, and it just didn't look good. Well, we went on one of our visits. We went to a campus, and it was embarrassing how bad the grass looked. They had just mowed it. It had hay up. It was wet. It had been overgrown. He saw that. He didn't say anything. We got finished with the tour. We got in the van to leave. And I asked him, what did you think? He said, man, that grass looked terrible. He worked for me another 20, 23 years. I never had to remind him or say anything about blowing those grass clippings because that made such a big impression on him. And he made sure his team had everything. Anytime they went on break, lunch, it was tight, looking good all the time.
Yeah, I remember that story from the book, and so that was really cool. But also, they were able to see some really good things that other campuses were doing.
That's right.
And then they could think, oh, well, we got to get to that level, you know. And then he shared with us today that, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, Jeff was telling them, hey, we want this place to be like Disney World. Well, most of them had never been to Disney World. So they didn't know what that looked like. So you got to get out and show them, you know, some other campuses, so that they could see that.
And I encourage people to do that. Is if you go to another town, somewhere maybe where there's not your competition, where you can interact with people and they can see your operations. You learn a lot. We call that benchmarking. And I didn't know I had a turn, but it was really a good. As landscapers do that, tree arborists do that, landscapers at college campuses. It's a real valuable part of it.
Well, one of the things is if you're criticizing work that's done at your campus, that somebody's tied to that job. So if that grass clip in the same scenario, and we're pointed out, well, now somebody's in trouble. They're like, well, or I did, or if Ed did, right, or Roger was the one that mowed that area and he did that. Well, then you get excuses. Well, but I didn't. I was going to lunch, and then but it's a lot easier pointing out at somewhere else, because nobody's name is attached to it. There's no emotion. It's just, hey, this makes sense now. Like, click for that guy.
Yeah.
So,
and not only that, being in a van, driving back in the place, spending time together, we create this unique experience that we bonded. I was new there at that campus, and I needed buy-in. I needed people to buy into me and the vision that we were going to be one of the best campuses in America. And so driving across as the Southeast really was unintentionally a great way to get to know each other. That's all. So I'm glad you enjoyed the book. It was a joy. It took me over 2 years to write it.
Okay.
And I turned it in, and my editor goes, you got enough here for 3 books. So she whittled it down to a smaller version to about 25,000 words. And I think she did a great job with it. Yeah, turning my words and my things that I gave her into some readable type information.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great book, and it's it's not a gigantic book. It's not, super big. It's a fairly easy read, and it's not super wordy. It's not, a bunch of gigantic words that you can't understand. I think it's simple. The idea is simple. Everything is there. It's not like so simple that it's just easy that everybody already knows it.
Right.
But it's very easy to understand. You read through it, you're like, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But like John Maxwell does a good job of that, and he just takes something and then kind of assigns some value or terminology to it, but it's things that you kind of already maybe even thought of a little bit, but he lays it all out, and I think you did that.
Yeah, and that's one of my mentors, one of my heroes is John Maxwell, and just taking some of his content and start giving it to our people, because we realized that our people, what needed to change most is the way they thought, and giving them good people to look up to and admire. That was a big part of changing our culture. Yeah, and we had a real challenging culture, but once we started filling their cups up with good, clean, positive content, and they were drinking from these cups of good stuff, they started changing, and now that's good success.
Let me ask you this. How much did their personal lives change, or was this all just work? They just became better workers.
I think I put this in the book, but if I didn't, so one of my guys that came to my office and he asked if he could come in, and he closed the door. I'd have an open door policy, of course, like most people do. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he goes, hey, this the leader that we're doing has really changed us as a team. We get along better. We don't have the drama. The draminators are gone. We're just getting along better. And then he got real quiet. He stopped talking. He put his head down. And I kind of wondered, man, what's going on with this guy? And then he looks up at me, and he's got water in his eyes. And he goes, and I want to tell you personally leader to leader has changed my life. And he goes, honestly, he goes, I thought my wife was the problem at home. He goes, I used to just think she was my problem. He goes, I was getting ready to divorce her. But going through leader to leader, I realized my wife wasn't the problem. He goes, I was the problem. And he didn't have this self-awareness. You know, so many times we do that in life is we want to blame everybody else. The only person we can really change is ourselves. And he realized that he needed to change. Well, 10 years later, he's working at my house doing some work. He's since left our department. He's moved on up into campus. And I asked him, I said, hey, are you still married? And, you know, I was kind of nervous about asking. He goes, oh, yeah, we're still together. We're still doing good. So that's a win, right? That's a win because he's a better employee, a better man because he stayed together with his wife.
But you changed his life.
Well, I did. The program did, yeah.
And I don't know if he had kids or not, but if he had kids, then you changed everything because now the kids are with mom and dad and not split and not, I mean, you know, doing that program could have really changed lives for generations. Yeah. So I think that's something we got to recognize, that it's not just some guy that needs to work a little bit harder or some guy that needs to get his act together so that, you know, he can, you know, be a better worker or whatever.
And we talked about this today. It's not fixing people. It's trying to set them up for success. Right? And so when we look at what he was going through, I'm just trying to fix him to be a better employee. Just, hey, I need you to do this right. Then he doesn't feel that message. He doesn't feel that into his belief system. But when we started working on how he thought, how he believes, that changed him. And then that made it to where he could be successful. He got promoted out of our department. He went and made, now he's making a lot more money to do it.
You hate to lose somebody.
Yeah, I hate to lose them.
But at the same time, like, you don't want to be the one holding him down.
That's right.
You know, so we've set him up for success. We're hoping he could stay within your organization. But you know what? We've really made a difference in that person's life. I mean, you did. I say, I mean, you. But you know, you made a difference, and then he was able to move on to something else, and he's still being successful.
Yeah.
So I think that's a win.
It is a win. And you know, you're going to lose people. It's going to happen, and you got to have the right attitude, because you don't want to burn the bridge. They may come back.
Yep. Or their brother, their sister, their athlete, you know, nephew, their son, whatever. You know, somebody goes, hey, this is a really cool place to work, and yeah.
And you hear the argument, well, why should we train them if they're going to leave? I said, well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? I love that, you know? And so we made a decision a long time ago that if we lost employees, we were okay with that. But we wanted to train them to be the best.
So I've been repeating that for a little while now, and I don't know if I got it from you or got it from somewhere else, but certainly that, and people ask me all the time, like, what if you put all this time and energy and effort and money and train somebody and then they leave? And that's always my response is, what if you don't train them and they stick? Then what do you have? Yeah. So it's worth it. And it's worth the risk, but ultimately our goal would be to train them and have them stick. That's the goal. We're not trying to train people to be, but they're not all going to stay. We have to accept that. And you could have them sign whatever you want. You could have them say they're going to reimburse you, whatever. But realistically, like, how are you ever going to cut all that? I mean, that's, you know, let's set them up for success and let them know, like, hey, we care about you, and like, we hope that you decide to stay here and do what we want. But you know, you get the freedom to go where you want.
See. It's cool. Well, I appreciate the kind words about the book.
Yeah, it was all. It was good. Yeah. Thanks for spending the day with us, and thanks for doing this. We get off about it. So
appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it.
Appreciate your leadership. Doing a good job. You got something special going on here.
Check out Jeff McManus, Growing Leaders to Leaders. So I'm gonna stick up a link so you can go buy it and check it out. There is an audio version though. Yeah, we've got that on our Audible account, and it's good. So you could do Audible, or, you know, you could pick up the actual
both.
Or both. There you go. But you got some other books too.
Well, I got Cultivate. Cultivate's the newest book out, and it's short stories to help teach your team, like, especially if you got a guy going through training, and he needs to learn. It gives like little case studies and situations. So there's 32 different topics in there. They're super short. but it allows you today. I think we did one called buy-in.
Yep.
Helping people get buy-in. And it allows you to have that conversation sometimes about a third person. So we're not talking about us. We're talking about this person in the story and how do they have buy-in and what do they need to do to get buy-in. And so that allows us to train somebody and develop them. That's the whole intent. And it's all about horticulture, landscaping, tree services. I wrote it for the green industry because we don't have a whole lot of content out there just for us.
That's right.
Yeah. And I got a little pruning book, Pruning Like a Pro. And that's one that from my very first book. So that's just more of a technical book.
And you do training like you did for us, but you do speaking engagements and things like that. So yeah, I highly recommend. So awesome, man. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Anything else?
That's it, buddy.
All right. Thank you.